You own something right now that most people in history would have killed for. Not a house, not a car, not even a smartphone. Time, unspent, unconsumed, unallocated time, and almost every single person on this planet is trading it away as fast as they possibly can. But the richest people who ever lived, they did something strange, something that looked, to everyone around them, like laziness, like waste, like doing nothing at all. Here is the thing. When historians study the wealthiest individuals across different centuries and civilizations, a pattern emerges that most people overlook completely. The Medicis of Renaissance Florence, the merchant princes of ancient Babylon, the early Rothschilds, John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, they all, at some critical turning point in their lives, stopped trading time for money, and they started doing something that confused, annoyed, and sometimes enraged the people closest to them. They started sitting still, not meditating, not resting, not sleeping, sitting still and thinking. John D. Rockefeller was once described by a colleague as a man who wasted entire mornings doing nothing. He would arrive at his office, sit down, stare at the wall, and not move for hours. People thought something was wrong with him. His partners would knock on the door. He would wave them away. When a reporter finally asked him what he did during those long silences, Rockefeller said he was thinking. The reporter laughed. Rockefeller did not. At the time of his death, Rockefeller was worth the equivalent of $400 billion in today's money. The most valuable thing he ever did was think. Now let's rewind further. Much further. Around 600 BC, in a city called Babylon, there existed a small class of people who had discovered something no school in the world was teaching. The historian Will Durant spent decades studying the ancient world, and what he found in Babylon's merchant class was not sophistication or luck. It was a single repeating behavior. The wealthiest Babylonian merchants all kept a written record of where their money went. Every transaction, every trade, every loss. Not to audit themselves, not because someone told them to, but because the act of writing forced them to see something invisible to everyone else. The pattern. You cannot see a pattern unless you record it, and you cannot change what you cannot see. This is the first strange thing the richest people in history did. They watched money with a focus that bordered on obsession, not hoarding it, not counting it like a miser, but watching it the way a scientist watches an experiment, neutral, curious. Without attachment to what it revealed, most people feel their money. They feel excited when it arrives and afraid when it leaves. The ancient Babylonian merchants treated money differently. They treated it like information. Every coin was data. Every loss was a lesson. Every pattern was a clue. The second strange thing takes us to the Italian city-states of the 14th century. Cosimo de' Medici was not born the richest man in Florence. He was born into a family of modest bankers, but he did something that the other bankers refused to do. He lent money to people no one else would touch, kings with bad credit, artists with no collateral, explorers with nothing but a promise and a map. His peers called it reckless. They predicted his ruin. What Cosimo understood, and what the economist Ricardo Hausmann would later formalize in academic research centuries later, was that the gap between perceived risk and actual risk is where all real wealth is made. Everyone could see the obvious opportunity, the guaranteed return, the safe loan, and because everyone could see it, it paid almost nothing. Cosimo looked past the obvious. He took bets that looked insane from the outside, but made perfect sense to someone who had studied the actual numbers. You do the same thing every time you avoid a conversation because it feels awkward. You trade the actual outcome for the emotional comfort of the familiar. Cosimo did the opposite. He sat with the discomfort long enough to calculate whether the feeling was based on real information or just habit. Habit, it turns out, is the enemy of wealth. The third strange thing is perhaps the most counterintuitive. They all, at the moment of greatest early success, drastically reduced the number of decisions they made, not expanded, reduced. Andrew Carnegie, who built the largest steel empire in American history, spent the majority of his working day doing two things: talking to people and reading. He did not manage his factories directly. He hired people to manage them. He did not approve every purchase. He built systems that made approvals automatic. The researcher Daniel Kahneman, whose work on decision fatigue became foundational in behavioral economics, found that the human brain degrades rapidly under the weight of repeated decisions. Each choice you make uses real cognitive energy.